Welcome to the Centre for Brexit Studies YouTube channel. Today we're joined by Centre Director Professor Alex de Ruyter. So Alex, we're now on week 3 of a lockdown now. How are you getting on?
Thanks, Beth. I'm getting on fine personally. I mean, for people like myself who, can easily work from home, or maybe to be more accurate, having to work at home due to this crisis, so I suppose it's a relative luxury, isn't it? I mean, it's not like I'm having to drive a bus or working in the NHS as a key worker. Life goes out to them, putting their lives at risk in that sense. But no, I think the strange thing about a lockdown, of course, is it's hard to recognise the life you had a month earlier, and yet this is a new normal. So, I'll say it again. I think academia is one of the few professions where this. Big elements of your job still carry on as they were.
So the Prime Minister Boris Johnson is still very much in charge of the government, despite spending the night in hospital with coronavirus, the Housing Secretary has said. But how long do you think he can continue to work, and what happens if he's actually not able to work?
Well, of course, the Prime Minister's in hospital under observation. I don't know how serious it is. Obviously, the medics are clearly worried about him if he was admitted to hospital, as it were. In terms of how long can he continue to work, I don't know. I mean, we get some reports of the nature of his condition, serious enough to go to hospital, but to what extent that's impeding him from dialing in or that, I don't know. In terms of who stands in for him, if he's incapacitated per se, of course, Dominic Raab is the designated Secretary of State for this purpose. So Boris, for whatever reason, was not capable of doing his job. I assume that would force Dominic Raab to be stand-in. Of course, we all wish him to get well soon, but that's how it operates at the moment.
So Keir Starmer was elected leader of the Labour Party over the weekend with over 50% of the vote. Were we expecting this, and what do you think this says about what Labour supporters are actually wanting from the party in the future?
Well, of course, you've got 3 constituencies there, really, haven't you, in terms of Labour supporters and those who voted for him. You've got MPs, clearly. You've got the union movement and the affiliated unions. And, of course, then you've got Labour Party members. And, I think there's evidence that he got the most votes across all 3 of those groups. So, clearly he's seemed to have widespread support. I mean, he won in the contest. He got over 50% of the vote, leaving the other 2 quite far behind. My own view, of course, is Starmer's obviously an experienced person. I mean, he's had a life outside of politics, and as a relatively recent newcomer to Parliament, he's not really in anyone's camp in that sense. I think that gives him a lot of room to put his own spin on things, as it were. Of course, his critics might say that he's trying to be all things to all people. I don't think so. He's clearly evidence some basic solid views. Of course, the big test now, of course, is how Labour seem to portray themselves as opposition. Of course, Starmer wanting to walk a very delicate tightrope between effectively criticising the government, which at the end of the day is the opposition's job, or the opposition want to get into government. So they're there to hold the government to account, and they can't let up in that function. The government clearly have made mistakes in hindsight in the way they've handled this, and I think we will find in Keir Starmer, given his lawyer temperament, a very methodical and forensic leader of the opposition who will do that.
So what challenges do you think Keir Starmer is actually going to face in the next few weeks, and do you think we can expect for him to work alongside the Conservative Party during this crisis, or can we expect him to criticise instead?
Well, in terms of that delicate balancing act, I think criticism often would be, so-called constructive criticism. The opposition, as I said, are there to hold the government to account. That said, I mean, Keir Starmer has indicated that they are willing to work alongside the government, though pointedly, no talk of government and national unity here. I mean, the opposition still want to be the opposition. But for example, if we take the flouting of social distancing, the hot weather over the weekend, Starmer has pointed out if the government were to put forward a legislation to stop people exercising outdoors as an extreme measure, he said they would support that. So I don't think we'll find Labor just trying to score, petty political points, as it were, really be holding the government to account. But in terms of the challenges that he's going to face over the next few weeks, If we expect these containment measures to have some success in stemming the nature of the outbreak, and we start to see it peak and trail off over the next couple of months, then some semblance of normality is going to return to the political debate. And of course, Starmer, prior to becoming leader of the party, was shadow Brexit secretary. And of course, whilst this might not be the time for many people to want to feel like talk about Brexit, to quote some pundits, Brexit goes on whether you're feeling it or not. So come by about June, July, of course, by the end of June, we'd have to notify the EU if we wish to extend that transition period of negotiations. That might well be playing in his mind. How do they play that out? I think over the next month or so, as this pandemic develops, I'm sorry to say, the notion of extending the transition period for Brexit, I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid at that. Certainly, I think that would be the most sensible response in terms of what do we do about that Brexit deadline. Sorry, that's my son here, Rory. Hello. Another consequence of working from home, we have to do more to look after our children, I'm afraid. But coming back to the point at hand, that debate isn't going to go away, nor many other things. So, we will see at some points, over the next month or two, some semblance of normality return to the debate. So there's a bit of a balancing act there, but I think for now it's all hands on the pump in terms of being constructive in combating this crisis.
So Keir has also announced the majority of his new shadow cabinet, with Lisa Nandy being appointed shadow foreign secretary. What do you make of his cabinet so far? And do you think this is a new start for the party away from Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, Starmer says he's a socialist, and I think in many respects he would hold true to a lot of Corbyn's ideas. Maybe one of the biggest problems with Jeremy Corbyn wasn't so much many of his policies, but more the fact that people had a certain mistrust of him being in that role. So, it remains to be seen in some areas. I think, one of the criticisms put forward is that Labor had too many policies, almost like a grab bag. I think, Starmer has, been persuaded of that in a sense. In terms of the team that he's got, Lisa Nandy, of course, Annalise Dodds, Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, relative bunch of new bloods here, but full credit to Lisa Nandy. She ran a fairly competent campaign, and she certainly made a strong case for Labor needing to reach out back to those in its so-called left-behind communities in the Midlands and the North. I think that'll be a good team going forward.
Thank you for joining me, Alex, and to those watching, we wish you all the best.
Thanks.